Hi there, my name is Katherine Edwards, and I'm going to be presenting my research paper, One More Thing to Hate, Toxic Masculinity and 10 Things I Hate About You. "10 Things I Hate About You" illustrates many masculine stereotypes. The overprotective father, the bad boy, the bully, and the nice guy. For the most part, audiences can laugh at the humor these stereotypes introduce and appreciate the light-hearted romance. In this movie, the father declares that his younger daughter Bianca cannot date until his older daughter Kat begins to date. Cameron, the new kid, develops a crush on Bianca, so he hatches a plan to get Joey, the popular jock, to pay someone to date Kat so that someone can date Bianca. Initially, Bianca dates Joey, but later turns to Cameron after realizing that he truly likes her. Not knowing about Cameron's plan, Kat begins to develop feelings for her date, but breaks up after realizing he's only dating her because he's being paid. In the end, Kat and Patrick reconcile and both couples end on a happy note. Because the movie ends happily, it can be easy to focus on the romance rather than the performances of masculinity. Although masculinity is performed in both Kat and Bianca's relationships, this paper will consider Bianca's relationships with Joey and Cameron because they present two forms of hegemonic masculinity. According to Diane Richardson, a researcher on youth masculinities, hegemonic masculinities are defined as practices which privilege particular forms of masculinity at the expense of femininities and other subordinate masculinities. Because the hegemonic male is obsessed with dominance, his assertiveness must be paralleled by another's submissiveness, since it contributes to his perceived amount of power. Overall, these men establish dominance under the guise of being a man. Throughout the movie, Joey and Cameron's masculinities are contrasted in three areas: their romantic initiative, treatment of women, and social status. Given that Joey's masculinity is obviously toxic, it overshadows elements of Cameron's masculinity that are destructive. Furthermore, Cameron's masculinity is more dangerous because it creates a sense of othering, which feeds into an obsession to assert power over others. Throughout 10 Things I Hate About You, Joey takes a very active, demanding role in his romance with Bianca, which shows his power as a man over her. After Joey and Bianca hang out at a party, Joey asserts his masculinity by assuming that Bianca will go to the after party with him. Researchers looking at hegemonic masculinity have found that asserting leadership in romance is a key feature in hegemonic masculinity. However, Bianca declines to attend. Instead of accepting her answer, Joey immediately asks Bianca's friend, in front of Bianca, if she would like to go to the after party. His action here is understandable because researchers involved in a study about hegemonic masculinity and sexual dominance found when a high gender role stressed man experiences a challenge to his achieved anti-feminine and dominant status by a female, for example, the experience of a sexual rejection by a female, he should experience gender role stress for failing to adhere to the prescribed norms associated with achieving hegemonic masculinity. The most likely and immediate reaction to regain that power is by reaffirming his identity as a dominant male. Although Joey wanted to go to the after party with Bianca, he must reaffirm his masculinity by demonstrating how desirable and powerful he is. Joey may not realize it, but he has become so tied to his perceived manliness that he identifies with it, which Judith Butler, a leading researcher in gender studies, notes to be a consequence of performing one's gender. Joey's masculinity is further stressed when Bianca attends the prom with Cameron. He immediately picks up Bianca's friend and starts a fight with Cameron in an attempt to defend his masculinity. After punching Cameron, Joey calls the attention of everyone in the crowd so that they can see his victory. In a study on youth masculinities, researchers found that masculinity is evidenced through displays of physical strength and success in attracting and having sex with women. Joey's actions in these incidences directly show how much he is performing his masculinity. By showing Joey's actions as an example of what not to do, Cameron's character is elevated as a model for acceptable masculinity, since he and Bianca get together in the end. According to researchers on acceptable forms of hegemonic masculinity, romantic passivity is a valued core feature of being a nice guy. After agreeing to tutor Bianca in French, despite not knowing French, Cameron asked her if she would like to start with pronunciation. Rather than taking charge, he allows Bianca to be dominant. Because these nice guys accept a passive role in the romantic process, researchers have found that they are seen as inferior men. When he tentatively suggests hanging out alone, Bianca responds, "You're asking me out? That's so cute. What's your name again?" She responds as if he's a young child, clearly showing her belief that he's inferior. Because Cameron takes a passive role throughout their friendship and relationship, Bianca assumes an active role. She asks him for a ride home, she interrupts him, she gets mad at him for not asking her out later. However, Bianca appreciates the power that is given to her in this situation, and Cameron's behavior surprisingly does not lead to romantic failure. When contrasted to Joey's overbearing actions, Bianca appreciates Cameron's passivity and chooses him in the end, which serves as an example for men on how to behave. In addition to being demanding, Joey's interactions with men shape his use of sexual language as a means of degrading women. Rather than complimenting Bianca, Joey catcalls her and her friend, which prompts his friend to remark that Bianca is out of reach even for you. Joey declares that no one is out of his reach and that he'll do this for fun. By affirming his sexual prowess, Joey reinforces his masculinity. In addition, his sexual dominance is intertwined with his belief that a woman should submit to a man. During prom, Bianca's friend tells her that Joey only liked her for one reason. He even had a bet going with his friends he was going to nail her tonight. The words used to describe sex emphasize Joey's sexual ability. Bianca is little more than an object for his pleasure. Obviously, the movie casts this aspect of Joey's masculinity in a negative light, because Joey is perceived as the villain. Since the audience is so disgusted by Joey's manipulation of Bianca to have sex with her, Cameron's innocence and romantic nature appear refreshing and charming. Because the audience roots for Cameron, his actions serve as an example of how a man should pursue a woman. After seeing Bianca for the very first time, Cameron remarks, "I burn, I pine, I perish." In the movie, the only person who can hear this statement is Cameron's friend Michael. Thus, his admiration of Bianca is evident to the audience in the beginning of the movie. When talking with Patrick about how to win Kat back, he recommends that Patrick sacrifice himself on the altar of dignity to even the score. His poetic words serve to put the audience on his side, when contrasted with Joey's crass language. Even when Cameron tells Patrick that Bianca kissed him, Patrick asks where. Although Patrick means where on his body, Cameron assumes he meant at which location and answers that they kissed in the car. His innocence also serves to bolster his image as a sweet, romantic, nice guy. Besides his demeaning language, Joey also asserts his masculinity through his social dominance. His bullying of Kat shows his need to control and humiliate women to feel powerful. In a study about the deconstruction of hegemonic masculinity, researchers observed that toxic masculinity is characterized by obtaining and maintaining status and power in society, and interpersonal interactions involve the objectification or dehumanization of others, particularly women, and a need to control others and hold power. Joey seems to have a vendetta against Kat because he intentionally degrades her at every opportunity. The first words that Joey speaks in the movie are to Kat, calling her a bitter, self-righteous hag who has no friends. After this remark, Joey's friend high-fives him, emphasizing Joey's popularity. Because Joey has so much power, he feels the need to belittle Kat to maintain his status. Later in the party, Joey asks Patrick how he got Kat to act like a human because she danced on a sexy way on a table. Near the end of the movie, Kat reveals that she slept with Joey, but threatened to reveal how small his penis was if he ever mentioned it. Her confession divulges why Joey feels the need to assert power over her. Because when a female threatens one's masculinity, a man feels the need to subordinate her. His need for dominance is extremely destructive because it creates a vicious cycle of bullying. In contrast to Joey's harassment, Cameron appears socially weak and unpopular in new situations. Cameron's body language conveys weakness through his constant fidgeting, habit of looking down, and reluctance to lead anyone when walking. Cameron is first seen when he meets the secretary of the new school to get his schedule. The secretary makes him wait for her to finish her novel, walks around the room while he sits, and stands over him for the entire scene. Cameron doesn't challenge her subtle displays of power or demand respect, which is what Patrick does immediately after him. While leaving, Cameron stutters and bumps into a table, and immediately after that, he bumps into Patrick. Patrick stares down at Cameron and refuses to move, forcing Cameron to move around him. Because Cameron is intimidated by Patrick, he refuses to go up to him and asks him to date Kat later in the movie. Cameron concedes to whoever shows power while doing so in a nervous, jittery way. Rather than his social weakness acting to discredit his masculinity, it causes the audience to identify with him. At first glance, Cameron seems to be the perfect romantic hero. He allows women to take the lead, he compliments them, and he's not obsessed with social climbing. However, the ideal romantic hero has simply shifted from the macho muscle man to the sweet and sensitive nice guy. As Professor of Rhetoric Regina Hanson states, the trope of the nerdy romantic hero, exemplified by the white male underdog, allows for the subordination and othering of women, even among people who were themselves other. Nonetheless, the underdog must be above someone, because in order to assert hegemonic masculinity, one must possess power over others. One subtle way that the movie emphasizes this aspect is through Cameron's friend Michael, who is nerdier and less popular than Cameron. Michael is also a person of color, and they use this to emphasize Cameron's dominance over him because Cameron is seen as socially above him. Finally, this new form of hegemonic masculinity allows men who do not fit into the traditional male stereotype to see themselves as being manly, which is problematic because it keeps hegemonic masculinity as an ideal. While Cameron seems to value women, he and his friends still view women as inferior, just in different ways than Joey. When Michael points out to Bianca to Cameron in the beginning of the movie, Cameron remarks on how she's totally pure. Already her virginity is at the forefront of his mind. Instead of seeing her as a beautiful girl or complimenting her personality, Cameron feels the need to compliment her purity. Whenever he hears Joey talking about having sex with Bianca, Cameron gets extremely angry because he thinks she'll be defiled if she's with another guy. His assumption and admiration of Bianca's purity reinforce the idea that a woman's worth is linked to her virginity. Although Cameron is non-confrontational for the entire movie, when Joey insults Bianca at prom, Cameron's entire posture changes. He goes from being disgusted at Joey's inability to accept that Bianca chose him to turning around, squaring his shoulders back, and challenging Joey to a fight. Cameron feels compelled to protect Bianca's reputation like a man would, through aggression. He is fulfilling the male fantasy of the underdog fighting the bully to get the girl. All of his actions reinforce Judith Butler's idea that gender is in no way a stable identity or a locus of agency from which various acts proceed. Rather, it is an identity tenuously constituted in time, an identity instituted through a stylized repetition of acts. Cameron's nice guy identity has morphed into a new toxic form of hegemonic masculinity. In addition to viewing women as inferior, this new form of hegemonic masculinity allows the weak and smart white men to feel manly. After Bianca rejects him at the party, Cameron goes to vent to Patrick about the situation. Patrick responds to Cameron. First of all, Joey is not half of the man you are. Secondly, don't let anyone ever make you feel like you don't deserve what you want. By reminding Cameron that he is a better man than Joey and that he deserves what he wants, a new form of hegemonic masculinity is born. As Hansen elaborates, it establishes the triumph of one form of masculinity over the other, the sensitive but still strong, handsome, white, protective male over the bully, while also reiterating the dominance of the male over the female. According to Patrick, not only is Joey, the bully, not as much of a man as Cameron, the underdog, but Cameron also deserves whatever he wants, in this case, Bianca. No longer is Cameron an other, he is an example of a worse form of hegemonic masculinity. Because Cameron has internalized the idea that he deserves something from Bianca for helping her, he becomes extremely angry when she rejects him at the party. While driving Bianca home, he stops and asks her, "Have you always been this selfish? Just because you're beautiful doesn't mean you can treat people like they don't matter. I mean, I really liked you." As soon as Bianca does not reward his friendship with romance, Cameron lashes out and vents his frustration to her. Like Joey, he internalizes the idea that women exist for men. And because of her rejection, Cameron must reassert his manliness by exposing her as the worst kind of woman, whom researchers have found is coddling and manipulative. His berating continues. "I defended you when people called you conceited. I helped you when you asked me to. I learned French for you." Cameron has identified with the idea that she owes him her affection because he helped her. Arthur Chu, a self-proclaimed nerd and winner of Jeopardy, noted how these ideas applied to his own upbringing. "We nerds grew up force-fed this script. Lusting after women out of our league was what we did, and when those unattainably hot girls would always inevitably reject us, our only hope was to be unyieldingly persistent until we earned a chance with these women for being there for them until they saw the error of their ways." Cameron's experience perfectly illustrates the entitlement and semi-stalkerish behaviors that these types of men use to control women. They use their time and resources to pursue a woman, whether she likes it or not, because they feel as if they deserve something from her. Somehow, his entitled speech persuades Bianca to like him, because at the end of it, she kisses him. Her actions send a terrible message that if men in the friend zone wish to be freed of it, they only need to insult and condemn their female friends to succeed. Altogether, this paper's analysis of 10 Things I Hate About You argues that the movie should serve as a cautionary tale for women encountering new forms of toxic masculinity. Because of the strong contrast between Joey and Cameron's masculinity, it can be easy to fall into the trap of allowing one form of masculinity to seem better than the other. Although Cameron may seem like an ideal romantic hero, his form of masculinity is worse than Joey's easily recognizable performance. In the future, more research is needed to examine the depths of subtle toxic masculinity, since this paper focused solely on Cameron's portrayal. In addition, more research is needed on other types of toxic masculinity in the movie found in Patrick and Bianca's father. Neither fit into the nice categories of nice guy or bully. More research into the type of toxic masculinity is permanent because these portrayals can serve as examples to impressionable teenagers. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and here's my contact information if you have any questions. Thank you.